Right, so three by-elections, three very different sets of results. As it happens, a hold and two losses for the Tories and just the one win for Labour means Sunak can breathe a bit of a sigh of relief that he's not the first PM since 1968 to lose three seats in a single day. It's still a really rotten day for the Tories, so hurrah. But Starmer will be rather cross in himself. He only took the one seat, and not even the one he was odds on to win, as it happens. We'll start with that one, Uxbridge and South Ruislip, which was the seat Boris Johnson vacated. First things first, turnout was down. Not surprising, Damo. It's a by-election. They always are. However, I did expect better because these poor sods had to put up with Boris Johnson as their MP up until now. You just felt like the appetite to send the Tories packing was legitimately there. I mean, put yourself in their shoes for a minute. You'd had the bloviating blonde baby-making factory as your parliamentary representative for all this time. He'd broken the law. His time as PM was marred by offensively bad decision-making, loss of life bad potentially, so much so a 3-year inquiry is underway going into that. And whilst all of this is going on, he's not even talking to you about your issues. He's not even doing the job. He's making millions in America on the speech circuit. So turnout down by 17%. Yeah, struck me as a little disappointing. The result in the end was that the Tories held the seat, which was even more disappointing, taking 13,975 votes, 45.2% of the vote, which is down 7.4%. So they held it despite losing ground. This was effectively damage limitation then. Labour ran them incredibly close, though. Their candidate, Starmer's choice, of course, Beales, took 13,470 votes, 43.6% of the vote, which was an increase in vote share for Labour. But at a measly 6% increase, you really expected better if people were going to turn out to get the Tories out. You really expected better from Labour full stop. If that was the driver for people during these elections, they really wanted to give the Tories a beating. That it did not happen here. Well, I'll come back to some of the other results presently. I think one or two of them bear consideration as possible further explanation of these results. But let's address the official Labour Party reasoning for failing to take what was thought to be the easiest one for them to win, easiest by-election for them to win, and that's ULEZ. London Mayor Sadiq Khan is about as popular as a dose of the clap right now in London over this, hell-bent on expanding ULEZ, or the Ultra Low Emission Zone, which if your vehicle is not up to emission standards, costs you £12.50 a day to drive in inner London, as things stand at the moment. Khan is planning to roll it out across the whole of London, despite protesting against it, to areas including Uxbridge and South Ruislip in outer London. The further out from the capital you get, although still not a cheap place to live by any means, as London is, as in any large town and city, you tend to find the cheapest accommodation, the less well-off households, the further out you go. Therefore, by rolling out ULEZ to cover all of London, it'll hit more poorer households, hit more with older cars that'll fall foul of the ULEZ cost of £12.50 a day, and that's potentially crippling. Now, for many of us who don't live there, we might think, well, they've got fabulous public transport, but that's less reliable the further out you go as well. And is actually besides the point when you look at things, look at this in terms of things voters are going to the polls thinking about. There's a right way and a wrong way to win people over to the arguments and issues surrounding pollution and climate change, and ruling by diktat is always wrong. Imposing things people disagree with instead of engaging with them and having conversations with them is always wrong. So it's no wonder Starmer and Khan get on so well, really. Two tiny men with superiority complexes who like imposing their will come what may. Khan is well on his way to losing the London mayoralty for Labour with the way he's conducting himself on this issue specifically. But is this really the sole reason they lost? I don't think so. I disagree with the Labour Party machine. You see, the third-place party in this by-election turned out to be the Greens. Hardly the result you expect if people are anti-climate change or even anti-ULEZ to the point they still back the Green candidate. Although there's no denying this was very much a two-horse race. The Green vote share rose by 0.7%. The Greens are more and more being seen as the socialist alternative to Labour by more people on the left, though. They won just 893 votes, but given Labour's Danny Beales only lost by 495 votes, arguably people going green in disgust at Labour and at Starmer cost them the win. I could point at the long list of candidates who took part in this particular by-election, make the same arguments that they took votes away potentially from Labour. But the last election here drew a lot of attention and a lot of comedy entrants too, because who didn't want to dress up in a furry costume and stand next to Boris Johnson to see who turned out to be the hairiest? There's another angle for socialists to have walked away from Labour here too, though. And that's the fact local Labour didn't pick Danny Beales. They picked a local lefty called Connor Liberty, and he got ditched on the basis he was apparently too young. They needed somebody with more experience, despite actually only being 4 years younger than Labour's candidate for the Selby and Ainsty by-election. Beales also wasn't local. He was, in fact, a member of Starmer's own constituency of Holborn and St Pancras. So the Starmer connection, combined with him being imposed on them, will have upset and driven local Labour members to potentially have gowned tools. It was a high profile, though, this by-election. All the big Labour names were there at some point, yet even that didn't matter. So can we pin all that on Danny Beales being imposed? Well, there's no escaping Starmer's recent policy announcements, or rather the changing his mind about policy announcements and then scrapping them. The kid starver effect right before this by-election, given how close it was, how much did saying he'll keep starving kids by keeping the two-child benefit cap come into play? It's hardly a reason to vote for Labour, is it? Labour basically lost what was predicted to be an obvious win for them based on their national polling. They needed a swing somewhere in the region of half of that their polling currently is saying it is to win Uxbridge and South Ruislip, and they failed to get it, which should put some perspective on the veracity of those polling numbers. Instead of taking stock, taking some time this morning over the next few days to look at how this result actually occurred, all the reasons I've given, how they're thinking about it too, they've just embarked on a blame game already, pointing the finger at Sadiq Khan as being solely to blame. They gained 6% here. They did gain votes, Labour. They didn't go backwards. They didn't lose ground like the Tories did. They gained. They just didn't gain enough. Yet still civil war seems to be their choice of direction right now, as someone has to be at fault with this, and we can't let it be Keith. I know, we'll blame the London mayor. Let him cop the blame. People already don't like him. Well, there's two other by-elections to look at, one of which Labour also lost, and you can't blame Khan for that one. Labour lacks the appeal its polling numbers indicate that it's got. It has lost the boots on the ground that always came from the left, as many have left the party and gone elsewhere. I can relate. I'm such a person down here in Cornwall. But the left were the ones who went out and were most active. The desire for change driving them to do so. That change has been taken away. So we've all gone elsewhere too, or stayed at home. Even though still in the party, you can't force them out on the streets to campaign, especially for a candidate they didn't choose, after their choice was taken off them at that. A big fat Starmer-shaped elephant in the room is behind this loss, I think, snatched from the jaws of victory. And Labour needs to face up to that. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please do like, share and subscribe to the channel if you did. New content posted daily. Meanwhile, here's another video recommendation for you, where going green was a perfectly understandable thing to do for those who might remember Starmer letting the Tories' draconian public order bill pass by ordering his peers to sit on their hands as the Greens tried to stop it, tried to destroy it with a fatal motion in the Lords. For those wanting an opposition party that actually opposes, well, the Greens have stood up and said, we're here, and people have gone to them. I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.